Welcome back to Cards and Comics. Today I'm coming live from my basement, the man cave. I've got the lights turned out. It's going to be more of a low-key hobby talk today for you guys. What I'm going to talk about today is really the danger in overpaying for vintage cards right now. And I'm going to focus on vintage cards because, other people, talk about hedging the bets, investing in vintage cards and Hall of Fame rookies as a way to guarantee that you will not lose money. In some cases, guarantees. In some cases, just it's safer than modern cards and the volatility. Well, I'm going to talk about the danger of that. Now, I did a video, if you go back in my history, where I talked about why it's okay to overpay. And so I feel kind of embarrassed I didn't talk about the downside. Well, the downside is always is you overpay. You don't ever get the value out if you overpay too much. But what I'm talking about in the video about overpaying is the idea that you buy a card and it's rare. That should be your first idea. If you're going to overpay, let's overpay for something a little rarer than the normal. But it's at a time period where maybe it's before it really gains value, or it's so rare that you don't know when another piece is going to come up. And so if it's for a collection, if it's for something that you really feel passionate about, that you feel like it's something you really need to make, like I said, a collection, or you feel like it's going to be something that's going to be valuable in the future, it's okay to overpay because really you're making an investment in the future and you hope it pays off. And I'm going to give you some really good examples here of the dangers, but also some of my own personal experiences. So we're going to start here with a card that, it's probably one of my favorite cards of all time because I own one. So it's hard to have a card of favorite all time if you don't own it. But here is a 62 Willie Mays. Now, I bought the card and I can tell which card I bought because my serial number is etched, not only in memory, but on the card itself. And it's this card right here. Purchased June 16th. Yes, from the sorry, wrong auction. No, it was down here. this one right here. Just kidding. So $3,500 and some change from again Probstein, the evil co-signer Probstein, who to me, we talked to Rick. He's actually kind of a nice guy, the idea is, I bought this card in 2020, and it was, in my opinion, before it, the price would really go up, because at this time period, the card prices for a lot of modern cards had started to shoot up, and I felt this card was super undervalued. And why did I feel that way? Well, when I looked at the pop report, and it was lower than this, I think, when I bought it, but there's only 86 eights and 9 nines and 110 in this card, which is very low. Common, under 100 eights for a PSA 8 from the 60s of any Hall of Famer is very low pop. They're commonly in the 400 to 500. So this card is super low pop. And so, not being, not saying I'm, smarter than anyone else here, but knowing the market was going up, knowing that Willie Mays cards, had not really seen a spike yet, and I'll show you the graph, I just decided to go ahead, pull resources, and get one of these cards before I couldn't. Now, where have they gone? Well, the last one sold for almost $10,000 in an REA auction. And that was in April, so we'll see. There's only 86 of them, so they don't come up for sale, every month for sure. So they've only sold twice this year, actually. So what does that really mean, in terms of why, in this case, I paid. In fact, if you look at what I paid, one sold a little cheaper the very next auction in Heritage. So, I theoretically overpaid a little bit, but if you look at it, it's one of the lowest sales of that card, and since 2019 and 2020. So I got a fairly good deal, and I made the move. Now, what I'm going to talk about, this card's a little bit of an anomaly. This isn't a normal way of looking at cards. So I've got this graph here from VCP going back, to 2014. And this card was about $2,500 to 36, and it just kind of fluctuated around. It got up to $5,000 at one point. And I bought it here in this lull right there, in this lull period where it had gone from highs of almost $5,000 down to 3,600. And I thought, okay, market's going up, I'm going to go ahead and grab it, right? So this is an idea where overpaying or grabbing that card now made sense. But if you look at this graph, it's a little bit this kind of gradual up with some walls, but generally a positive gain. But in a lot of cases, and this is the danger I'm going to talk about, is that for vintage cards, if you truly are going to hedge and invest in vintage, you need to have a long-term plan for vintage. You need to have like a 5-year plan to hold that card. If you're going to spend a lot of money in vintage and you're going to, use that as a way to hedge, your collection or your investment, you need to think about 5 years, I'd say 5 years, so 3 to 5 years as being the minimum amount of time you need to hold that card before it may gain in value enough to either make you money or you sometimes get back to where you were, especially if you overpaid. And that's something that a lot of people don't talk about, is that vintage cards, while being safe in terms of a lot of times they never really go down too much, but you can see the cards fluctuate. But the idea is that the only way you can guarantee the return or the even if it's just flat is that you have to have a long range plan and still sell at the right moment in some cases. So I'll give you an idea here. So again, these are examples of either cards I've purchased or cards I'm following because I want to purchase. But here's one that just sold, because I know it just sold because I was looking at it and I was shocked by the end price. It was a 61 Ernie Banks PSA 8. And it sold for $420. And so the idea that, the card market's tanking to a large extent isn't really true, because this is the highest this card sold in a long time. In fact, the one sold before, and the two sold before, were over $100. In one case, almost $160 below this price. So it kind of surprised me that it brought so much. Now, of course, the highs of the highs back in 2021, it sold for $600. But you can see this big spike here. But what I'm showing you is that going back to 2016, this card was $100 to $150 almost every day. And in fact, it got down even below $100 at one point. But you can see, over 1 year, this card went up $30 and then back down. And then, so again, I'm going over a 2, 3, 4 year period of time where this card basically was fluctuating by $20. So if you bought this card in 2016 for $116, it would have been worth $107 in January 2019. You would have lost $9 over the course of 3 to 4 years. This card really didn't start taking off and growing until about 2020, when the market really corrected in the positive manner. And this card started to go to 175, then 200, and on up. But this just shows you that when this market corrects again, when the recession hits, when the prices of cards go back down to a more normalized level, you might see this 3 to 5 year period of stable prices with some fluctuations around that. In this case, this card was around $20 to $30 of fluctuation. So again, you're not going to be making or losing a lot of money, but you're not going to see a lot of return on cards like this. And so that's the thing, is that, yeah, you can park a lot of money in vintage cards, but unless you're looking at a card like the 62 Maze, with this really low pop count, which shows this kind of overall just gradual year-over-year growth, you're not going to see that for a lot of vintage cards. They just don't behave that way. A card I just had on my channel was a 62 Koufax PSA 7. And so if you go to 2015, this card was around $140. You go to 2020, so it's 2019, and there's sales at 160, so a $20 variance in the course of 4 to 5 years, right? So you're not seeing, yeah, there's spikes and, maybe a card that was better centered or whatever was built in here, but this card didn't do much. And then all of a sudden, 2020 rolls around, you see a 200, 300, some spikes here. But, when this card normalizes, because availability of this card is still pretty good, 62s are a little tougher, but it's a 7, that when it normalizes and corrects again, you're going to see this long tail of price stability to where you're not going to see, a lot of doubling and tripling or quadrupling of prices like we saw in the last couple of years. And so that's the danger I'm trying to tell people about, is that parking money in vintage is a long-term play. You need to think about 5 years. If you need to get the money out of your vintage cards tomorrow, like you're going to park some money there and cash it in within 1 or 2 years, you're just wasting time. You're not going to see a lot of return. You're just going to, it may take a small loss or a small gain. But again, it's the long-term play. Now, does that mean that, you shouldn't buy vintage cards? No, you definitely should, because look at the Jim Brown card. So I look at his rookie card. You can see some really interesting things in Jim Brown because of the normalization of data here. You can see this looks like a really small amount of money, but actually this is like $10,000 right here. And this was in 2017. But the card went from $10,000 to $5,000 in the course of a year almost. And that just shows you that even buying these high-end cards, and you're seeing it a little bit in the vintage market, where some of these big-time Hall of Fame rookies that really shot up in price have come way back down. That happened even beforehand, where, before in 2015, this was a $4,000 to $5,000 card, shot to $10,000, back down to $5,000, and then slowly kind of stabilized around $5,000 for about 2 years. And then slowly in 2019 got to $7,000 and then $8,000 and on up. And now it's trading. The last sale was around, $22,000. But again, you can see, that was a $13,000 loss compared to the one in a different auction. But, in a premier PWCC auction, it sold for $45,000 just in March. So again, that's, lost half its value in less than a couple months. So that shows you the volatility we're in right now. So would you overpay right now for a card like this? Well, this card is pretty rare, but again, with the downturn of the market and again a recession coming, I'm not sure overpaying right now is the actual solution. I'd say you need to look at pop counts a little bit. You need to look at, cards that haven't really gone through this cycle of growth. And I've mentioned a few of those recently. I've talked about vintage hockey cards. I've talked about pre-war cards as being cards that were relatively unfazed by this growth and, this doubling, quadrupling in value we saw in a lot of cards. In baseball and Hall of Fame rookies, and the Jim Brown card went from a $5,000 to $7,000 card to $45,000 card with a high of $96,000. I mean, just went to some crazy stratosphere. That those cards are not, to me, cards that you would look at to be something that you would target right now. I would target something that hasn't experienced these kind of boom and bust period. And something that's a little rare. And so you got to look at sets. You got to really know what sets and pop counts are out there. I think, they're so hard to get. I mean, if I was going to buy something right now, it'd be something like a 68 3D Clemente. Something that registry guys need, every day, and is hard to find. Like every Clemente collector needs that card. I mean, that's just because I know Clemente cards. I'm sure if you're a big-time Nolan Ryan or Tom Seaver or Mickey Mantle collector, you know better what those markets look for. Like the 59 Bazooka Clemente, 59 Bazooka Mantle or something like that. Something that is rare, hard to find, and maybe hasn't seen these kind of crazy price increases yet. So, I think this is where, we have to look at, and the last one I have, because I don't want to be the dead horse, but I just want to show you the graph that has probably the most sales because the card is so common, is the 86 Fleer Jordan. Not now with the announcement that PSA is grading the star. This card could even do some more craziness. But you can see the stability of this card for years and years and years before we saw the spike. Now it's stabilizing again. You can see a lot of sales stabilizing around $7,000 or $8,000. Again, here in 18, it was a $2,000, a $1,500 card. Now it's an $8,000 card. Could it be a $4,000 to $5,000 card eventually? It could be. So again, I would not be looking at this card as being something I would, shoot for in terms of, targeting right now a card that is undervalued or could, gain some money in the next 4 to 5 years. I think this is a card that's going to stabilize in 4 or 5 years, hit a floor, stay there for a while, and then maybe slowly increase again, in 4 or 5 years. So definitely not something I would be looking at today. Again, I would look at stuff that hasn't seen big swings in price. And again, or stuff that is just so undervalued. We're seeing the Jackie Robinson and Willie Mays corrections just because those cards were just so undervalued for so many years that those price corrections are still happening to some extent. So again, it's really picking and choosing. You've got to be very picky at this point. You cannot go in just buying any vintage card you want, because I was showing you the Ernie Banks as an example of a player who was so stable and low in price on that PSA 8 61 that I think that card's going to go back down to some lower level and stay there for quite a while, because it's from a set that's not rare. 61 is probably the easiest 60 set to get an 8 in, outside of maybe the 68 and 69. But the 61 top set has just tons of 8s for most cards. Not rare. So I think you just have to kind of look at that as saying, look, I am going to be very picky. So again, overpaying right now, again, for most vintage cards is just not a good idea. Getting something at a deal. And I talked about it in a lot of my national videos I did, and just with people in the hobby I've talked to. I said, I'm going to the national with the idea of taking money, cards, and trying to leverage, some hot cards and hot players that are hot now, and try to use that leverage to get some vintage cards I think could grow or could be stable, or things I need for my set, but I want them to either be at a discount. For example, if I'm going to pick up just, cards I need for sets, or cards I need, because I'm missing cards in, for my Maze and Aaron collection, but they're very common. Like I need the 70 Maze, right? I need the 70 Maze. It's a very common 8. I'm not going to overpay for it at the National. In fact, I'm hoping to get one at a good price, either at or slightly lower than VCP or comps, and I can utilize some leverage to bring that price down to get a really good deal. And I'm actually hoping to find an 8.5 or a 9. But if I can't, I'm not going to overpay for that card, because it's not a card. Even though it's a Willie Mays, I think it's going to continue to increase in price because of the availability, the pop count. But if it was something like a 53 tops Willie Mays and a PSA 5, 6, or 7, then I would definitely look at doing that deal completely different. I would look at it as, would I overpay for a 53 tops Willie Mays that was in great visual appeal condition? Yes, I would overpay for that card. I would not overpay for the 70, but the 53 tops, definitely, because that's a card that's iconic. It's hard to get. It's a short print. It's proven over the years to be a tough card to get in high grade. So yeah, that's the kind of card I would target as being an overpay target. The 70, I would want to get a deal on. And, the comment, Neo in a comment said to me, like, well, getting deals on vintage cards is very tough. I agree. But if dealers are looking to move inventory and need money, maybe it'll work. So again, as I'm, working up to the National and working up to, how I'm going to look at, going and having, how I think I'm about structuring deals. I have to keep this in mind. I can't overpay for cards right now due to, I think, the price correction and the flatness you see in a lot of cards curves over the years. And that's just indicative that, if I'm going to hold the card, if it's for a collection, it's great. I don't care. But if it's something I'm thinking about, turning loose later on or using it for leverage and other deals, if it's a vintage card, I gotta just understand that, it could take 3 to 5 years before that card is worth more than I've paid for it, or in some cases overpaid for it, that day of. And so, do I want to park my money in that card, hoping to sell it, to make a little profit, or to use the leverage I have in the card to make a trade? I think that's where you have to be very, very cautious right now. So, guys, that's my video. That's what I want to talk about. It's I love vintage and I love getting cards for your collection, but just be careful right now, guys. Don't be over exuberant on vintage cards because people are telling you to, or telling you that it's super safe. Because if you look at these curves, we could be in a 3 to 5 year flatness period for all these vintage cards. So that's my piece. That's what I'm going to talk about. Hope you guys enjoy the video. I'm coming up on my 2-year anniversary, so we'll be talking about that in some future videos. But it's getting close to the holidays, or July 4th. So hope everyone is safe and fun July 4th holiday. And I'll see you again on Cards and Comics. Bye.